The purpose of this video is to walk through both a strong example of a cover letter and resume, along with a weak example of a cover letter and resume. For students in my classes, you actually have access to these through the project instructions. So you can take a closer look on your own, and I'm actually going to make them a little bit bigger just so you can see. So we're going to start with the cover letter. We talk about writing professional business letters. There is very specific format guidelines that go with them, as in spacing has to be a particular way. Information needs to go in a certain order, and it's really important that that all happens. So one of the things that I noticed immediately with this cover letter, and this is the weak example, we're going to start here and then we'll lead up to the strong one, is that this particular student has tons of extra spacing in their cover letter, which is making it appear unprofessional. Now, when I'm going through, they have single space. Up here they have this weird funky extra spacing. It's really inconsistent. And then another inconsistency as far as formatting, we get down here and you'll notice that they have two indented paragraphs, one that isn't indented, and then there's spacing in between them, but they're indented. There's just all kinds of inconsistencies with the actual format. So in order to correct this format, this student would need to get of all of the extra spacing that is happening right here. And I'm just going to show you real quick. I'm not going to change the whole document, but I just want to make sure that you can see the difference. So this would be having it corrected, right? The spacing would now be single. Then we would just have one double space between and that's not even a double space. Again, spacing is definitely off, but there would need to be a double space between their address, the date, a double space, the employer that you are addressing the cover letter to. Again, that address would need to be single spaced. There is another double space, then you get your your greeting. Then again, there shouldn't be this large space here. It should just be a double space, and then into the paragraphs. Paragraphs should not be indented, and there should be one extra space in between each of the paragraphs. And so that's just something to pay attention to. And again, you'll have a document that I'll provide that gives the specifics. You can also find the specifics online, even though not all sites are accurate. So just heads up about that. So that's some pieces as far as formatting. Now, a couple of other little things about formatting that I wanted to point out. You'll notice that their email address was in blue. That's a hyperlink. You want to get rid of all hyperlinks typically, unless a company specifically requests it. And the reason for that is, again, it just makes it look a little bit less professional. Now, other pieces of this one. When you're writing a cover letter, your cover letter needs to reflect and write towards the job announcement. Like, that's the whole idea. It's not there. It's your way of introducing yourself. It's like a first impression. And so you're trying to give them information that is not reflected in your resume. You're trying to give that extra little bit to help you get there. And so when we're looking at this cover letter, I'm actually going to scan down to the job announcement itself, and we're going to take a look at that real quick. So the job announcement is for an associate producer with CBS television stations. It's part-time, no benefits. It gives some information about CBS, and then it gives this description. It says employees will assist in the preparation and production of station newscasts. Duties include preparing formats and scripts, operating studio production, graphics and newsroom computer systems, and then it says other duties as needed, qualifications, television experience and or college background in television preferred. Candidates should have familiarity with studio and control room practices, newsroom operation experience a plus. Communication skills are essential. So why I'm showing that is because that's the information that's provided. But if we go back up to this cover letter, there's a John Smith listed here, but there is no name listed anywhere on that job announcement. So I'm not sure why it's addressed to John Smith. Again, a dear Mr. Smith. Well, there's nothing on the job announcement that lets us know that it should be being sent to that person. Now, right here in the very first line, it says, I'm writing to you in regards to the executive producer position. But the job announcement isn't for an executive producer position. And so the reason that I'm pointing that out is that if you are not using the exact language to reflect the job announcement, that can easily cause you to not get an interview or not even be considered for an interview. It looks like this is a sort of a general cover letter that was probably used for multiple postings. And so again, the job announcement isn't specific. So to go into the details of the cover letter just briefly, it says, I believe that I possess the proper qualifications for the job. Either you possess them or you don't. You don't want to say, I believe. In that case, it's kind of making it sound like, well, I'm not really sure. I think I do, but I might not. Just say I possess the proper qualifications for the job, and then give what those qualifications are. Then it continues, I graduated from George Fox University in 2018, bachelor's degree in communication arts, and a minor in cinema communications, so that's good. It's relating to that, the request for film experience in school. I've also worked for a local news station, okay, and more influential news outlets such as NBC. Prior to my work experience, interned for companies such as Viacom and Disney. So here's the issue with the last portion of this paragraph, is it's just listing out information that should be included on the resume. Where you worked is going to be on the resume. But what did you learn or what did you do with those jobs that has prepared you to be successful as an associate producer based on the duties and preferred qualifications that they have listed? It says that they've used communication skills in a variety of ways, so that's great. That was one of the things that was listed on that job announcement, was communication skills. And then that last paragraph is really almost all about the communication until the very end, where it says, creating thrilling and important content for your news broadcasts would put my abilities to work. I work diligently, effectively in everything I do is the sentence before that. So that's a little bit broad. And then it's kind of like, okay, well, how does that relate back to communication? Because it kind of seemed like that whole paragraph was really about communication skills. So again, just making sure that those pieces all align and add up. Then it says, thank you for your time, which has been closed. I eagerly await your response. So it has the basic like beginning, middle, and end, but what it seems like is that they needed to break this out and elaborate a little bit more. Communication was the biggest piece that they actually focused on in their cover letter, but if you go back to the job announcement, they didn't mention anything about the duties. They didn't mention anything about their ability to prepare formats and scripts, about operating production equipment, about computer systems. They didn't specifically talk about the familiarity with studio and control room practices or newsroom operations. So they touched on one or two things, but they didn't give the full overview of what this what this job would be looking for with a candidate. And so the content is problematic there. Now, when we get to the resume, this is a really good example of a resume as to why you do not use a template. This is like the case in point. It has sort of all kinds of pieces that are not necessarily going to be helpful, and I'm going to walk through those. A couple other little things I wanted to point out. It also ends on different pages. So the resume actually starts at the end of the cover letter. Those should be separate pages. They should not be on the same page. It should be very clear that this is the cover letter, separate page, this is the resume. Also, this particular student went by Gabriella Sotoff, and then their name switches, Gabrielle Sotoff. Now, it's possible that the student, and I know the student, so the student went by Gabrielle with one L. They actually legally changed their name, but then they had the Gabriella up above, and then they actually misspelled their last name here. Their last name was Sotoff, with an E, not an O. And so you really got to pay attention to those little bitty details. Same issues with spacing on this. It should not in any way be double spaced. You use single spacing with an extra space or double space between sections. The objective, this is a great example of an objective that is just not useful. It says an experienced producer seeking to a job in television productions. I didn't mention this earlier, there's grammatical errors throughout both of these documents at this point. That type of objective is general. It doesn't serve any purpose. It's kind of like, well, so what? Yeah, I'm kind of assuming that if you are applying for this job. So what is your more specific objective in terms of getting this specific job and career? A summary. Summaries are not something I typically recommend including. And the reason for that is it's just lots of wording. And on a resume, the average job employer will spend 6 seconds looking at your resume. That's it. So in 6 seconds, I am not going to take the time to read through some big long summary. And so you really got to be thoughtful about if that's useful or not. This is an example of what's called a functional resume, in that it focuses more on the skills, but it just has all the skills listed out together. It doesn't give any additional information, and these are all general phrases and nothing that is really telling about this person's ability to do these things. Then it has experience. It lists the job. So it lists things in different orders. So it has job, date, showrunner, intern, job, date, title. And so it's just the consistency is all out of order there, and there really isn't any sort of explanation about or reasoning for that. It just seems really inconsistent. And then the education is at the end. Typically you want education to start the resume, not end with it. The only time you would really end with education is if you only have like a high school diploma and the job isn't even really emphasizing that that's a necessity, right? Where education isn't required. This job was specifically calling out that, hey, they wanted something with college education in this field. And so it would be important to actually list that first. And then they have their job announcement. Again, the resume and job announcement run together on the same page. They should all be on separate pages. So now I want to flip over real quick to the Strong project. So immediately one of the things that you can see is this project actually has a cover page. So it has the student's name, of course the class, English 235, and that this is a cover letter resume project, and then they included a table of contents. Their cover letter is on page 2, resumes page 3, job announcement pages 4 through 6. Super, super clear and professional. When you get to their cover letter, this is an example of what a cover letter should look like. Formatting, very clear, very consistent, following all professional letter, business letter guidelines. It has name, it has date, it has the company, has dear hiring manager because they didn't know who the specific person was. And then the content of this cover letter is much stronger. So it gives a specific listing along, or the position along with the number that was on the website. And then it has a clear overview. My degree and experience in mechanical engineering, along with my professional and innovative personality, make me a strong candidate for your job opening. So it's really clear like why this person thinks they're a good fit for the job. Then it goes into while working on their degree, they intern, this is what they learned at intern, this is how they'd be able to apply it to this position. In addition, and then they go into some more characteristics, right? The personality part. I'm goal-oriented, have desire and drive to be successful. They mention a personal aspect. I put myself through college and the first in my family to graduate with a college degree. Plus, I work hard and meet deadlines. So they're giving some sort of insight into them, right? Giving some information. These different characteristics, again, show I'd be an asset to Ford Motor Company. So they're continually coming back to how this fits into the position, how this information applies to the actual job announcement. It says, I believe in working for a company I trust. So they're appealing then to the actual mission statement of this particular company. And again, it continually mentions the job title and the company itself without becoming repetitive. Again, you can read through it more closely on your own, but just as far as formatting, what to include, that's a really good example of a cover letter. I can also let you know that the student, when they graduated, they actually revised this cover letter slightly and then used it to get the job. And then this is an example of a resume. And again, it's set up as a functional resume, but this one showcases exactly how you would want to set it up. So again, it starts with the name, contact information, always important to have. Then it lists out the education, again, very consistent. It starts with the degree, where they got the degree, and then the date. Then they give their skills. They break their skills down to the 3 categories that they felt were most relevant to this job and best reflected their abilities, which included communication, collaboration, and work ethics. And then they give 3 statements under each of those, further elaborating on how they do that or what characteristics each of those means about them. Then they have their work experience. Again, it's clear. It's all set up in the same format. They give what their job title was, the company, the dates they were there, and then a single line of description, and then the references available on request. All of their subheadings are exactly the same. Their spacing throughout is very consistent. And again, it's clean and easy to look at. In 6 seconds, an employer could glance through this one and get a really good idea. So this is just to give you an idea of some of the things to think about when you're putting together your own. First of all, again, it's all about having consistency and attention to detail. Those 2 things are so important when doing technical writing type of tasks. The second is just you want to make sure that you're presenting yourself in your best possible light and making sure that, again, not only the information contained in it sounds professional, correct grammar, etc., but then the formatting of it is also really professional from that visual glance. And then finally, just last note, you can see that the student did include the particular job announcement on here, so that if you want to go through and read it more closely and see how it connects back, of course, you're welcome to. And again, the overall way that this project was put together represents a strong example. Now, also just want to mention, anytime you see me using students' work, I have adjusted their personal information to make sure that it doesn't give out any personal details about them. So no, these are not real addresses, phone numbers, emails. They've been adjusted slightly to make sure that they're not the actual students. And then these students both also gave me complete permission to use their projects in classes to demonstrate these pieces. Gabrielle actually went back and revised her cover letter project, and it was turned in as a revision, and she did excellent upon revising it. So again, I just wanted to use her original one to show you that there was a lot of work that still needed to be done, whereas this one by Jordan, really clear, easy to follow, easily put together, very professional overall. And so this should just give you some idea of what to aim for when creating your own cover letter and resume. I did not touch on every single little detail. We could have talked for a whole hour about these or more. So any questions, any other things that you'd like to ask about, feel free. And other than that, hope you found this useful.